Hello, Bricksters. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today on our last day at Summit. I'm Allison Baker. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at Databricks. I actually haven't shared a few things about myself. I've been here for 4 years. This is my 4th Summit, and I am just floored by all of the amazing announcements that we've seen. It's so much to keep up to speed with. And on that note, I want to make a comment. Please share all of your insight, share all of your comments, and hashtag Summit Live. We want to hear from you. We've seen all of these new things come to life. We've seen declarative pipelines go open source, agent bricks. I was at a little gathering last night. I might have been doing some eavesdropping, and I think I heard the words brilliant and transformative when we talk about agent bricks. So we're super excited. We want to see your pictures. We want to see any live streaming groups where you've gotten together to watch all of this. As a group, as a team, we're super excited. Again, we're collaborative, and we want to win all of these workloads with you together. So with that, I want to turn it over to another breakout session. Here we're going to talk about the latest and greatest in AI and BI developments. We're going to have Miranda and Chao share some additional features and show us how easy it is to do self-serve analytics on Databricks, just talk in plain English to the data and get all those business insights out of the data as quickly and easily as possible. They're also going to bring on stage a special guest. So we're super excited to share this next session with you. I'll go ahead and throw it that way. Take it away, Miranda.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you for sticking with us to the last day, the last session of Data and AI 2025. It's been a long week. It's hopefully been an exciting week, but we're so happy that you decided to close it out with us. So thank you for that. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Miranda. I lead the AIBI product team, and I'm joined here by Chao.
Yep, my name is Chao. I lead the AIBI engineering team.
And today, what we're hoping to do, we know this is the last session. We know everybody's kind of thinking about headed home. We're going to recap some of the top items, but we're not going to go into depth on every single little one. And the reason is we both want to invite up Mikey Flynn from Rivian to kind of give us a little bit more in depth of their story, as well as save about half the time for Q&A. You guys made it all the way to the end, so this is the time to get every last question asked and answered. We are here to kind of do whatever we can to help there. So let's kick it off. A forward-looking statement, very important. Surveys, very important.
There's always more. All right, so hopefully at this point you've heard of AIBI. If you haven't, go check what it is. It's a set of products across Dashboards, Genie, and the many things that surround it to make sure that we can actually make Databricks useful for everyone in your organization. And with that, I mean, we've talked about how native BI has a lot of advantages around it being unified, it being scalable, and a lot of the intelligence that we can do on top of that. But digging deeper, if you look at AIBI dashboards specifically, we've been talking about how it's AI at its core. There's a lot of intelligence features to help you get started on dashboards, create it quickly, use it quickly. It's super fast, and you can share with anyone in your organization. And a couple of features that we'll be highlighting here. We have a long list that we've shipped over the course of the last 12 months or so. But we're going to focus on top drivers and calculated dimensions and metrics as two of the things that were really interesting dashboards developments. On the top driver side of things, I think you saw a brief demo from Miranda earlier today, and there were sessions about it earlier as well. But basically, this is our way of saying, let's go beyond just the descriptive, what's going on, to really try to dig deep and say, well, why is it happening? Can I actually see, I saw a big drop from yesterday, or I saw, for example, the outage that we just all saw. What exactly caused it? And if I saw a drop in revenue, I saw an increase in revenue. What were the contributing factors in terms of countries, in terms of products, et cetera? So top drivers is a good way for us to automatically drill into the various dimensionality to try to summarize the potential factors for you.
Yeah, and to be transparent, that is inspired by a lot of what really does happen all the time at Databricks, right? Most common thing, we're looking at our charts, we see the same, like, oh, there's an unexpected uptick, an unexpected downtick, not unlike I imagine most of you at your business. And this literally was what we were doing ourselves, working with our data science team to do ourselves. And it's not impossible, it's just time intensive, and you do have to be fairly adept at different techniques and fairly comfortable with the data and SQL. And even when all those things are true, it still takes you a couple hours, you get distracted, you have to go do something else, you come back. So for us, this has actually been one of the most exciting developments because it is making that kind of asking and answering what happened here, like very turnkey, immediate. And the example we showed during the keynote was like, okay, APAC had like some big event. I would then know who to go talk to in APAC about what was different there. So this is something we really encourage folks to lean into and leverage as much as you can. We'd love feedback. We definitely don't consider that the current iteration of Top Drivers to be the final one. So we'd love to kind of get some input from you all as you start to use it on, what different scenarios are you interested in? Where is it working? Where is it missing something? Is the data that it needs to conduct the entire analysis typically in the dashboard, or is that some sort of extension model we need to think about? So very keen for feedback on that.
Absolutely. All right, and then next up, we've got custom calculations. We've introduced this in a couple of waves this year, starting with sort of custom metrics and then followed by custom dimensions. But the notion of custom calculations is we don't want to force you to go somewhere else to declare sort of additional semantics, additional ways of declaring metrics, things like churn, things like revenue, all sort of outside of the dashboard. You should be able to easily just define it within the dashboard. And then as sort of mentioned earlier today, I think Ken mentioned Genie, but I'm going to talk about dashboards as well. We're basically trying to make sure that your semantics are governed, but also as portable as possible across AIBI and the rest of Databricks. So if you've declared a set of calculations inside of a dashboard and you really like it and you want to use it for 5 more dashboards, and you also want Genie to be able to use it as well, you can now push it into a Unity Catalog metric view so that you can start using it pretty much everywhere across the stack, and you can stamp it as this is the one that I trust and certify.
And Chao, one thing I think we kind of glossed over quickly in the keynote, but maybe was hit in a different session, the performance element of metric views. Do you want to maybe speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we were motivated to build metric views for a couple of reasons. One of the big ones was so that you can have governed semantics inside of Unity Catalog. But another big one is a lot of folks talk about, hey, I have a lot of different metrics, and I'm spending a lot of effort building various tables or materialized views to try to make sure that it's fast for all the scenarios I care about. And those are things that over time we believe we can use the best of Databricks intelligence to really help you do better. And ideally, you get just an optimized button or it just comes performant out of the box as you set up your metric views and as we watch for what are the most common access patterns. Okay. And then on the other side, as we mentioned, our philosophy is dashboards will cover the top 10 to 20% of your most frequently recurring questions. You've got the Genie for the rest. And the way Genie works is you can literally ask it anything, and as you have sort of data domains defined in various Genie spaces, they'll be set up to answer those questions. Our goal is to make sure that that's as useful as a complement to all the recurring dashboarding that you're doing as possible. In terms of key Genie developments, again, we have a very long list. We'll probably run out of time if we try to talk about all of it. But we'll drill into 2 things that we think are very exciting developments that will hopefully help you with both making sure that Genie is useful for all of your users, as well as making sure that Genie is able to dig into a lot more interesting questions. So the first, I'll talk about a couple of challenges that we've seen customers have with curating a Genie space. The common feedback that we get is, hey, Genie is really cool, it's really powerful, but it's still taking me a little too much effort to set up, and I'm not able to always tune it to the right things because you just gave me a text box. I don't know what to put in that text box. Yeah. So a couple of specific challenges. One is around data transformation. Things like I would like to specify this join to be done in this specific way. And for some folks, I don't have write access to Unity Catalog. I can't actually declare my primary key, foreign key there. So I'd like to declare local in Genie and make sure that I get that right first. And sometimes I might want to just do that because it's experimental. And then I want to push it up to Unity Catalog once it's ready. So that's one challenge. The other is, like I mentioned, so text can be anything. We would like more structure to be able to declare things like sort of specific definitions that are much easier for the LLM to interpret. And finally, right now we largely just have the text instructions and example SQL, and it's harder to say this metric is exactly calculated this way. We have metric views, but you might not be ready to create one yet, so we want to make sure that's easy to do in Genie as well. So with Knowledge Store, this is basically our next attempt at making sure that your semantics inside of Genie are not just a blob of text. It's actually as reflective of your understanding of your business's language and semantics as possible, hopefully in the way that you're already familiar with expressing. Things like primary key, foreign key, things like I have 1,000 columns, but these 10 are the ones I care about, that I want to expose through Genie, et cetera. Those are the things that we want to make sure are easy to do by default inside of Genie. And our goal is basically to make the authoring experience as easy and delightful for you as possible.
Yeah, and we were chatting with one of our customers in the finance sector this week, and they're like, well, but we put everything in Unity. What's like, why would we ever do something outside? And it's like, well, that's where we want everything to land, right? But the questions I said were, well, when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to change this column description, or can you create a new view that drops these columns, or can you add a foreign key? What is the first thing you ask them? They say, well, to justify it. But it's kind of a chicken and an egg in that situation, because you can't justify it if you can't do it at the Genie space level to validate, like, hey, this is worth the investment in making a change in UC. Whereas by having this kind of option to work in the space local semantic layer, you can get to that level of curation, higher accuracy much more quickly, prove out the value of the changes you're asking for, and then yes, absolutely, those should get promoted back up to UC and then consume downwards. But we wanted to kind of cut that tension, right? Because right now we kept hearing from customers like, it's a rock and a hard place. I want to curate the space this way. I don't have permissions to. Every change to a table is like, enter a request, like it gets scrutinized really deeply like it should. And then that makes the curation process take that much longer. So the intent with this is not to say, hey, ignore UC. The intent is to say, get to a better place of accuracy where you can prove out and validate why certain changes should be made.
Yeah, our philosophy is basically to make sure that you can declare your semantics wherever it's most convenient to do so, and then bring it to wherever you actually need it. And then, of course, you saw deep research this morning. This is a super exciting development where we know that your questions are not only going to be things like, what was my revenue last week? Well, okay, yes, Genie can answer that. But what about like, hey, I really need to figure out things like, I need to plan an event next week. I have all these details I need to figure out from a data perspective. Can you help me just figure out the whole thing? Can you actually come up with an entire research plan? And that was the motivation for deep research. We want to make sure that we can get beyond the simple point questions into these much more involved analyses. And of course, at the end of the day, you're still in control. You get to actually see what are the plans, what are the steps, and make sure that you can adjust them as well. And this is something that we'll be rolling out in preview later this summer to folks who are interested. Definitely sign up if you are, and we'd love to hear your feedback about what you actually want to use this for, as well as what you find useful for this. Okay, and then of course, those are awesome products, awesome experiences, but we've also got to make sure that you can share them as broadly as possible. So.
Yeah. So, one of the things we were so excited about to show with, Databricks One and the consumer entitlement for folks who may have seen that is, really kind of making a safe place for everybody in the business who maybe doesn't need to have permission to spin up a 3XL cluster, who maybe doesn't need to have permission to, go use DLT, who maybe doesn't need to have as expansive creation powers, but absolutely can still, it's their job to work with data. They should be working with data every day, but you don't necessarily need them doing data engineering, data science, potentially. You want to give them the power of Genie for kind of self-serve analysis. You want them to consume their insights directly from Databricks so that you're not having a delay in the ability to access those insights as they get extracted to another system. You want to keep your governance in place, because as soon as you start extracting to other systems, good luck making apples look like oranges and keeping kind of your data access story the same. And that's why, we have been really investing outside of the things that look cool, like, yeah, great, we have a SAN key, that's exciting, we're going to do it, we're going to add more visualizations, we're never going to stop doing that. But that's why on the other side, you see us investing so much in the tooling and the capabilities that you need in order to safely onboard kind of anyone in the organization to access Databricks in the right way possible. So one of the big ones that came out this year was automatic identity management, and this is for our Azure folks using Entra ID. We absolutely plan to add support for Entra ID on the other clouds and then move on to some of the other identity providers. But the idea here is to say, hey, what's like the user with least privilege? How can we make that user automatically provisioned and give them access to resources when someone shares? So, me as a dashboard author, I don't necessarily know if Chao has access to Databricks or not, but I was told to give him something. Previously, I would have tried to share something to Chao. I'd not see him show up in the list, and I'd be like, okay, well, let me like export this PDF, right? The idea with automatic identity is I can say, okay, let me share this to Chao. I see him as an option. Once Chao tries to access that item, he's going to be actually added to the account via OAuth, so we're going to know it's chao.kai@databricks.com. He's going to be a user of least privilege, only able to access that one asset that was shared to him. Everything's audited. Everything is consensually governed. But the idea is that you don't have to have this long request and grant process that slows down Miranda sharing to Chao, so that Miranda starts extracting data all over the place, and then we lose sight of it, and we have no idea kind of what happened.
Yeah, our goal is to make sure that you are ultimately still very much in control of who you share to and what you share, but we want to make that as easy for you as possible.
100%. On the embedding side, so we also know, sharing insights within Databricks is awesome. We love that. We want everyone to go to, databricks.one.com/mycompany. But the reality is, there's 100 different places people are going throughout the day, where maybe there's something that's valuable to surface in that area. So we have moved to support both embedding directly via iframe for the basic scenarios like, hey, I just need a dashboard on this Confluence page, or maybe have this show as a Salesforce tab, all the way towards much more streamlined kind of app delegated authentication for cases where you may want to, for example, surface some of these visualizations in an application you serve up to your own customers, delegating the authentication securely to what you have already established in that application. And yes, as we all saw, big hesitation as we were having that kind of conversation with customers throughout the year was always like, well, okay, so now Chao's the least privileged user, but like this is still a lot. This is still a lot. Like I don't need 19 questions about this, and when do I get training about this, about stuff I never want Chao to be able to use. And that's really why we leaned into Databricks One. So just to clarify, there are kind of two pieces here. First is the consumer entitlement. That's the one that says, hey, you're really only allowed to consume dashboards, Genie spaces, and apps. And then the second piece is the reimagined kind of experience for that kind of user, which is what we're calling Databricks One. This will be coming out later in the summer in preview. We're super, super excited about this one, leaning into kind of that domains concept that's going to be very fundamental to UC and also part of the Discover page for, again, those more technical data science, data engineering users. Like, one of the things we want to do is we don't want to keep inventing new paradigms, right? We don't want it to be like, well, if you're a data scientist, data engineer, you use this thing, and then here's this whole other thing, and you have to figure out how to like make them look the same but different, and then govern them like kind of the same but different. We want it to be the same domain. It's just if you're a data scientist, data engineer, when you're in the workspace, you might see a few extra things, right? You're going to see the tables that are associated with that domain. If there's a pipeline associated with that domain, you'll be able to see it. But in Databricks One, we're going to streamline that a little bit more so that it's really just the vetted content and just those dashboards, Genie spaces, and apps.
Yeah, our goal is to basically make sure that if you have a new employee joining the organization, this is the default place to send them to. If they're trying to make a decision about data, if they want to see what the health of the business looks like, this is their default homepage.
Well, but you've heard enough from us. You've heard enough from us. I'd like to invite Mikey Flynn up to the stage to tell us a little more about what Rivian's doing in this area.
Guys.
All right. Go ahead, please.
The mic is mine.
Mic is
okay,
yours.
Hey everybody, good to see you all. So delighted to be here and glad to share a little bit about our journey and what we've been up to this point. And I think afterwards there's going to be a Q&A, so don't be shy with questions that you might have. So so I lead a team at Rivian that's called Core Data, and our accountability, what I always say, is to try to make everybody at the company a data person. So I wake up every day thinking about what can we be doing to both lower the barrier to entry for new users, and a lot of what we're talking about here today is huge in that way. And then also, how do we get existing users, or even some of those new users, to be able to go deeper and deeper into the tools that are there? Because as I'm sure you can appreciate, it's sort of like you give a mouse a cookie situation. You sort of show somebody a dashboard, they're like, that's great, but what happens when this situation arises, or why is that bar taller than the next bar, et cetera? So yeah, excited about the self-serve capabilities, both I guess selfishly to keep my Slack inbox from overwhelming me as much as it often does, but also of course because there's this notion of sort of suppressed demand, or there's more data consumers, data people out there than they even realize. And so I'm always thinking about not just the person who's waiting on an answer from me or from the data team, but the person who didn't even know how to ask that question, where to pose it, what Slack channel to pop up in, what dashboard to look at. And so, yeah, the combination of Databricks One and, again, Genie and these self-service capabilities on top of AIBI dashboards, I think is going to be really enabling for us. Maybe a final thing to set the stage. A couple of years ago, we really invested a lot of energy into consolidating our data catalog into Databricks, into UC, and that's been a huge enabler for us. So we were, at the time, spread across a bunch of different platforms and had the classic problem I'm sure many of you have, which is sort of conflicting sources of truth, siloed data. If we wanted to do a cross-cutting analysis, we had to sort of get permissions from one team in one ecosystem, pull the data into another one, and the governance on that became super tricky. So it's been a huge enabler for us to come into UC, not just in terms of the single source of truth, but then on top of that, single source of governance, single source of access. So anyways, I'm happy to answer questions you might have about that journeys of convergence, or yeah, guide me if there's questions on the AIBI consumption of that data, which is obviously where so many people are getting access to the data. The catalog in and of itself doesn't do anything for us. It's only when people are asking questions and gaining insights from that data that we see the real value. So.
Awesome. Yeah, let's open it up for questions. I think we have microphones on.